Hey friends and family, it's Rex and Shayna.
Hello, great to see you. Glad you're with us.
Yes, and we're back. We're having another conversation, and Radix is in the background joining us.
Getting nice and comfortable.
Yeah, he's here. He's adjusting cushions and making himself at home. We've had a really
Get comfortable, make yourself at home.
Please
Been having
do.
a wonderful conversation
We're having
tonight
hot
and
tea.
thought we should get this on video.
It's a snowy night, so join us.
Yes, here. Cheers.
Yes, cheers. Cheers. All right, that was a proper cheers. Yeah, we've had some really interesting conversations today, and I think the main thing that's come up for us this week, because there's been so much of this in our lives, especially in the last couple of days, is people transitioning into and out of this realm of existence and grief. So it's impacting so many people. It's impacting us, and I think it's an open space to share because this is real, and
It's something we all face, you know, and it's something we all know that one thing we all share is one day we all know we're going to die, pass away, move on, however you want to put that. But also too, I mean, for those of us that are left here, I mean, the grieving is a very real part of that process. No matter what you believe about it, how you perceive it, that process. I mean, the grieving is a very real and I think a very important part of that process for a number of reasons.
it is. And you see behind us, there's the Halloween Christmas tree, which it's a Halloween Christmas tree exactly as it sounds. Goes up in September, comes down in January.
Perfect.
And you know, holidays are, you know, a time that can be a lot more emotional when it comes to grief and processing and feeling, and it seems a lot of people exit during holidays.
And it's also a time, I think, you know, family, it brings people together, and it's a time to remember, and of course, you know, one of the things we do remember are those that we love that have moved on.
Right. So that's been kind of heavy on our hearts tonight, and one of the things that we've really been sharing, and spaces that are safe and comfortable to discuss grief, because people don't like to talk about grief because it's not the happiest emotion to embrace.
And they're even more reluctant to talk about death, which is something that I think is very important to have an open and heartfelt, loving conversation about this.
Yeah, so we want to create a safe space for that and acknowledge the emotions that we're experiencing with this, as well as what other people are experiencing, because our experiences are never about us.
Right.
It's always about others.
Sure.
So this
Especially
is
about
no
the person
exception.
moving on, because in my experience, I find that grieving is one of the ways we honor that person. As somebody who's had a near-death experience myself, something I say to people often, especially if they've just lost maybe their partner, their best friend, brother, sister, mother, father, even that favorite pet. Oftentimes part of that grieving involves, you know, remembering and reminiscing and thinking about all those wonderful, amazing times and how much they meant to you. And sometimes when you're doing that, you really actually feel like they're right there with you. You can feel their energy, feel like you're embracing them and they're embracing you. And I would suggest, I really believe this, that they really are with you in those moments.
They are.
And reach out, and if you just take a moment to just listen, you might even be able to hear them. Maybe not through your audible, your physical ears, but you can hear them within.
And one of the things I've noticed too that a lot of people don't like to discuss is people with neurological differences, people who are neurodiverse, tend to have more experiences with people who've transitioned than neurotypicals do.
Yeah, that's your department. I don't know a lot about that side of it, but yeah, I understand. And just for somebody myself with traumatic brain injury, and as I say, been through like an actual near-death experience, which we're not going to probably get into tonight. I do have videos out on that already, but there is really something to that, and I'll tell you, since that experience took place, I definitely see it a whole lot differently. Not just in the idea of somebody transitioning and passing, but the connection of it, the connectivity of that transition. Because we may leave our bodies, but we really never leave the world. We don't leave each other. I also don't believe in this concept that, and it's up to you, and I'm not gonna tell you what to believe about this, but I don't feel like you've gotta let them go. You know, my mom passed away in 1988, and I feel like she's been with me ever since. And I don't feel like I need to let her go per se. I feel like, you know, that love, that connection is still there. The difference is, of course, that I don't have my mom here to give me those big mom hugs, which I miss so much. There's nothing like a big mom hug, and anybody that's close to your mom, you know that. There's nothing like a big mom or big dad hug, you know. But she's still with me, and I feel like that's what, it's natural. It would be very unnatural for me to try to push that away at this point in time, because that's a big part of, I think, what gets me through and helps keep me grounded and reminds me, about the truth of love, the
Right.
purity and the authenticity of love, and at that soul deep level.
I know just the conversations we have, I know that's been like the hardest part of life for you, because it brought up many other behaviors and emotions. The emotions led to the behaviors, right?
Right. I was 22 when my mom died, and the truth is, I didn't handle it very well. I mean, I had an amazing life. I was actually a stockbroker it was a lifetime ago, but I was actually a stockbroker. I was a finance major in college. I had a production company at 21, 22 years old. And my mom died rather unexpectedly. And, the truth be told, I wish I could have handled it and maybe been stronger about it, but I didn't. And I felt like in some ways I was kind of left alone to deal with it. And anything that could have gone wrong did, and I ended up making a lot of really bad decisions, and basically ended up on the streets and homeless inside of a year, because I just was just so consumed with anger. I didn't understand, and the way my mom passed was rather unexpected and frankly avoidable. It didn't have to happen.
Right.
Her doctor, I don't think took the best care of her. I don't think her doctor took her particularly serious when she was going through the issues she was going through before she died. And so when that happened, I was already kind of an angry young man at that point anyways, and all the darkest parts of my being just came crashing out. My rock in my life, the most important person in my life. I love my mom. I'm not ashamed to say I was kind of a mama's boy. I love my mom. My mom even liked to go to the clubs, which I love to do. Even all my friends would hang out with my mom and her friends at times, and I had no shame going on the dance floor with my mom. I had no shame in that. That's how amazing and how wonderful my mom was, and what she really meant to me, and how inspiring she was. But when that part of my life was gone, everything that was dark, everything that was anger, it all came blasting out, and it forever changed me and changed my life. I mean, I'm at the other end of it now, where, that was back in 1988. I'm much older, and I've had my own near-death experience, like I mentioned, and so I see it all a whole lot differently now. So I feel like I can use that and my mom, that connection that I still have with my mom, to help bring out my best, especially at this time of my life, and be my best person. And more to the point, is a sort of a mama's boy, be somebody my mom could be proud of, because that's still really important to me, even though it's been so long.
Yeah, and it's so hard during holidays when the people.
She died right before Christmas too. To add to that, it was December 7th that she died in 1988. But anyways.
And that just, I didn't know that, and it feeds into exactly what we're saying, how so many people seem to.
Well, the holiday depression is real. Whether it's a loved one that died during that time of year, or whatever a person may be going through, that holiday depression could be very real. I mean, I think I'm past that now. I don't go through those kinds of emotions anymore, thankfully. But for many, many years I did. I dreaded the holidays. I just could not stand the holidays. I mean, it was one of the most brutal things that I went through, because my brother and I, had to go through her apartment and go through all of her stuff, is that we found our presents that she bought for us. That was really tough. So, I mean, plus, just going through her stuff is just really tough. Anybody that's had to do that when a loved one dies, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you find the Christmas presents that you were going to get on Christmas that were hidden in her closet or hidden wherever she put it away, that she was waiting to wrap for Christmas, that just took it to a whole other level.
Last year, right before Christmas, my Aunt Jerry passed.
Ugh.
And I didn't talk to anyone about it.
You were close, right?
Very close. And didn't talk to anybody about it. Like, a couple of people knew an aunt passed, and that was it. And it wasn't until probably a month and a half ago I put it on my private personal Facebook, because I couldn't really process it enough, and I was feeling so much that I couldn't really let it out. But it was sacred, and it was okay in my heart. Like, I felt okay with that. I didn't need to be open about it.
And sometimes it's hard to know how to release it. It's hard to know how to process it, especially if you don't have anyone to talk to about it.
It's true. And when I was present with the family, but I gave her children space to go through her things, because I was a niece. I didn't fit that role. And I didn't know that her children knew how close we were. And when she passed, they got together going through her things and said, we know that you and mom are really close and we want you to have something of hers. And we have this beautiful crystal cross that she had, and we'd like to know if you would want that, if you would. And I just,
right, I can imagine.
Yeah, because I didn't
How
know
thoughtful.
that they knew. And one of them said something, mom didn't have enough money to give us birthday presents, but she would always make sure Shayna had one. And she would go to some of Shayna's birthday parties, even though we couldn't afford to have birthday parties. And different stories started coming out. And a little bit of it I knew, but the majority of it I didn't. I didn't know that her kids were going without presents, and I didn't know that they couldn't have birthday parties, but she'd still drive an hour and a half to mine. Like I did, there was a lot that I didn't know of what kind of sacrifice she made and how deep her love
Just
was.
how big her heart really was.
But I always knew that we were close, and I knew that I loved her and had an extraordinary relationship with her. But I didn't know significant pieces. And then each kid, as they felt led, like added their little piece of what they observed or knew or understood with our love. So when they included me in having one thing that was hers, I mean, and I think that
How meaningful, incredibly. And how thoughtful. That's really beautiful.
yeah. And I have it in the case.
You still
over
have it,
there.
of course you do.
It's in the case over there.
Oh, nice.
It's like one of the first things you see when you walk in. 'Cause
yeah.
it's in the case at the entry, it greets everybody when they walk in the house. And it's like that one's special because that was from Aunt Jerry.
Ah,
So it's been almost a year, and I'm feeling so much. And yesterday, one of her children, her youngest child, had a spouse transition. It was very sudden, very unexpected, and I'm just feeling so much for my cousin because I can't do anything to fix or change what is. I can only love, and I
just be
can't
there the
even
best that you
call
can.
because then I'm bombarding all these things that are happening in her life.
And she's probably being a little bit overloaded right now, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You know, when that first happens, especially, you know, when somebody that close, I mean, everyone's calling. Everyone means well, obviously.
Right.
And I would say, you know, I wouldn't discourage anybody to make that call, but it can definitely be overwhelming, you know.
Yeah, and I love my cousin a lot. Of all those, I mean, I have a special relationship with every one of her children, but a really, really
precious.
special one with her youngest because I'm the youngest grandchild and she's the youngest daughter and the youngest child in that lineage. And she really went out of her way to make sure that we could connect when I was younger. And she knew I was struggling, and she knew I wasn't fitting in, and knew I needed extra love, and showed up for me. And here she is needing extra love, and I'm like, when do I step up? And you know,
Well,
and
one thing
it's-
I've learned in life is that timing is everything. You'll know when that moment is right.
Yeah.
You'll have that moment with her.
right? So I'm not having my own grief with this. I'm grieving for her.
But you know, at some point, you're going to have to give yourself that space to grieve.
I'm
And maybe you.
maybe, but I'm really.
I mean, we all deal with it in
her
our own ways,
experience.
but I just, for me personally, I mean, there's a point with which I think you need to, somebody close, somebody you really love, you need to give yourself some time to.
Yeah. Right now,
Maybe the time isn't just yet, but
yeah.
at some point you need to give yourself that time too.
And right now, I'm processing a loss that happened Saturday in my life with.
I know you were saying earlier was that a lot of stuff's going on like
for
that.
35 years, and he was, he was really special in a significant part of my life, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and he had cancer for the last few years, it's a lot for 2 days.
And it is. In my experience, something when you lose somebody who's this near and dear to you, I don't personally feel like you necessarily get over it. I don't know that that's really the objective. You do learn to live with it. It does get easier. You can still be happy with your life. But these are the kind of things that just, I don't know, they just tend to stay with you. And, again, my mom, you can see her. She's on the verge of tears talking about this. And my mom was in 1988, and I still can just tear up with just talking about it because it's something that's always with you. But at the same time, I think it's one of the ways you honor that person too.
one of the
Show
most
them how much they mean to you, how much they meant to your life, and how much you truly love them.
That's it. Love is eternal.
Absolutely.
Souls are eternal. Love is eternal.
That is the source of all things, and I'm sure we'll be having that conversation soon about love as well. But love is eternal, and it is a source of everything.
But you can't separate it from this. It's part of this conversation.
Absolutely, you're right.
It's part of this conversation, and yeah.
In terms of talking about what does love mean to you, but yes, it does.
Right.
It is all encompassing. It's all connecting. It's infused in and around everything that we are. From within and from without, it is everything.
It is everything, and yeah,
especially when somebody dies, it's one of those moments that no matter what you believe, what your religious practices are or aren't. I mean, these are the moments that you kind of break down those barriers, and you can start to feel that and realize that no, there really is something more to this. This isn't just brick and mortar, and when the brain functions stop, that's it. No, this is part of the experience, and a very profound and important part of that experience.
It really is.
And not to be feared, and that's also very important. One of the reasons I think we wanted to do this tonight is so many people, we fear death, and we dread, the inevitable if somebody is dying, especially when somebody close to you has got cancer or something, and that they're at that point where they're getting close. I mean, it's so hard when it's coming up to that point, but I can't encourage enough, but approach it with all the love in your heart. Put the fear aside and just embrace it, something beautiful. And I know it's tough for us, and maybe the appearance of it seems like it could be ugly sometimes because there's suffering involved, but there's nothing more beautiful than that passing, because we're going home, truthfully.
We're going home. And, with both of us experiencing so much chronic pain, we were talking earlier about your friend who suicided, chose to end her suffering.
Right.
Because the suffering was so intense.
Right.
And the compassion that we have for people who are suffering through invisible disabilities or possibly visible disabilities, but more often than not, they're invisible. It's the pain that can't be seen that's so significant. Especially
when you've been living it for years and years and years, and it's only getting worse, and you have a doctor tell you some really bad news. Sometimes it reaches a point where, I don't want to say on the one hand I want to condone it, because I don't want people just out there think it's an arbitrary thing to go off to take yours. This is not what this is about. But at the same time, there's a point of compassion, even a point of intelligence of saying, okay, I've done all I can do here, and it's just time. But I don't mean that just because you're having a tough life, or maybe your guy or girl broke up with you, and that's cause for suicide or something. Especially when you're a young person, this is not an arbitrary thing. I'm not saying this is okay to just go do this. I mean, because live your life to the fullest, no matter what. But there are just times, there are just moments in certain people's lives when, and I can understand. I've actually had moments where I've thought about it myself, but it's hard to say, but it's just time, because I don't want to make the light of this, because suicide is never, to me, a viable option, but unless it's really just, you're at the end, and sometimes you just know there's just really nothing else you can do, and you just can't take on anymore.
And I'm in the business of extending lives.
Absolutely, and I'm at the place right now where I want to see everyone live their fullest and most complete, most loving life, and be your best person while you've got breath in your body. I mean, I went through a series of, we've talked about this. I mean, I get these crazy migraines, and I just even a couple of weeks ago went through like almost a week of nothing but migraines, which meant I didn't sleep at all during that week. And being in bed that entire week, I have massive atrophy that was going on all over my body. It was just pure, it was the most misery I've been in just freaking years. And I tell you what, there's a moment there where I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I can't take this. This is so much. And if it doesn't break at some point, I don't know, and I couldn't help but think about it. Obviously, I didn't do it. I'm here, and I'm so glad I'm here. But sometimes, when you're in the middle of something like that, it's just so
it's
hard.
It's like, where is the relief?
It is, and will there be relief? But the answer is, way more often than not, there will be. It's just, you've got to give life every possible chance. I mean, it really, if you're at a point of that, what I call, a very carefully thought out, suicide. I mean, because I know nowadays there's certain states that have legal suicide when it's done medically assisted, and especially if you're at the end of life, you've been through, all kinds of fighting through cancer or any number of horrible diseases you could be going through that could take your life. When there's just nothing else, that's one thing. But again, life is always a choice. Don't ever think that suicide is the option. Life is the choice.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any way to just live and get through it, life is a choice every time. And I'm so glad I didn't, get hasty and do anything, out of that pain that could have, hurt myself, or, or maybe if I would have attempted it and I didn't succeed at it, I mean, how much worse would I have made my particular situation? And then I have to live with the idea that, oh my gosh, Rex attempted to commit suicide. And it's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want anyone that knows me to have to know that. And even admitting this right now in this video is a lot. And I'm sure if some of my friends hear this, they might like, Rex, really? Come on, dude, really? If you get, and I can imagine, I'm going to hear a couple of my friends, Rex, and even you're going to be like, Rex, you should just reach out to me in that moment.
No,
please don't.
I checked in with you. You're not.
I'm not suicidal, but sometimes you just get to that point where the pain is so much, and it's been going on for so long. And for some people, it goes on for months and years on end. And gosh, I can empathize, but I'm just going to say, choose life. Just choose life.
Well, because when you sign up for life and you choose life, you're choosing love. You're choosing the invitation to continue loving other beings.
Well, also loving yourself. Making sure you don't lose that sense of love for yourself, because you deserve life. You deserve the best too.
Or if you're like me, you're not loving yourself, but you're loving God in you. That's.
Well, to me, that's kind of synonymous. Loving the God, the divine in you, is truly the ultimate in loving yourself. I
understand that, and yeah. For me, I'm just like some stardust and like some bony stuff and some.
But at the same time, be careful, because you don't want to diminish the people who do love you, though.
No, that's not
because
diminishing.
You are like your partner. I know your partner loves you so much. Your little doggy loves you so much. You are so much more than any of that. And one thing I just honor that, and I want people that they feel that way about me. I want to make sure that they that I don't want to discourage anything like that.
That's right. I'm with someone who doesn't want to change anything about me. And the puppy doesn't want to change anything about me, and
just loves you just because
it's refreshing.
That's
so
that true, pure,
Nobody's
authentic,
trying
soul-deep
to make
love.
me somebody I can never be and telling me I'm not good enough for it, and it's
or trying to turn you into something that you're not, so they can love you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not one of those things of, you'd look so much better if you changed this, or you'd be so much cooler if you did these activities instead of the ones that
if I read what I read to you earlier?
Please do. Please read.
I do spoken word performance, and this is just a little snippet of a spoken word that I do to music. Give me a moment here to find it again.
But it's so good when we get to tell ourselves those things, and we don't need to hear it from an outside source. Right?
Yes.
And we get to tell ourselves the affirmation that we wanted to hear from someone else, is I don't need to hear that from somebody else.
Right.
And if somebody says the opposite of that, I'm gone.
Right.
Fast.
Well, and one thing too, if you're really grounded in that self-love, then it's okay. Whatever somebody else says doesn't have to phase that. I mean, sometimes it hurts if it comes from somebody you care about, but it doesn't change that love in your heart.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, I wrote a piece of music called The Art of Love, and I performed that with a couple of wonderful bandmates in this project I have called Naga. But there's I have a much longer version of this that I do, but this is just a little snippet of it. It's called The Art of Love. The art of love is not to be bound and shackled by another's expectations of what they think you should be, but to be set free in knowing you love and are loved for everything you are. The imperfections, the shortcomings, and all that makes you amazing, special, and so beautifully unique. Because there will never be another like you. So here's to the art of love, and here's to true love, and make love. There's more to it, but I'll leave it there for now. Yay.
I love that.
Thank you.
And I see when you read it, the tears you're holding back.
It's hard to talk about love, especially in that true form, and I can't help it. I did the performance of the full version of it on Saturday. I have a residency with my band, and at a really cool place called the Molecule Effect, and it's actually just as cool as the name suggests. And I did. It was about a 6-7 minute piece, again to music and drums and all these really cool things going on. And the whole time I just got tears in my eyes. I'm saying it, thinking it, feeling it, and I literally had to, at the end of the piece, I had to dismiss myself. And even my bandmates were like, Rex, what are you doing? We're in the middle of a set. I had to run to the bathroom, go clear my eyes, go blow my nose so I can come back and play the rest of the set. Because it's just how much I was just moved just saying the words. I mean, there's just nothing like true love in this life, and I mean that's why I'm here.
That's true.
I don't know that I could be here without it. Cutest thing ever. True love.
True love. And I love that you're talking about this and reading this, and he walks up right then.
Of course.
Because that's not an accident.
Right.
There's no such thing as coincidence, and that is not an accident that Radix would walk up right then. And he knows. He knows.
Yeah.
He knows what you're saying, and he takes in that love. And yeah. It's pretty incredible. Thank you for sharing
Oh,
that.
thank you. Yeah, this has been wonderful. We don't always know where these conversations are going to go. This is just all. This is from the heart. I mean, sometimes we make a video, we have a plan for it, but this is just one of those things. We're talking about this tonight, and you're like, you know what? We need to continue this on video and share this with the world. So, if you stayed with us this whole time, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you got something meaningful from it. I mean, that's the idea. That's why we do this. Put our hearts on our sleeves and hope we can and help you somehow in some way in your life and whatever you're going through.
And encourage you to continue loving. And,
Absolutely.
you know, and with grief, you know, we talked about something really important, and that was, you started crying earlier, and you said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm your friend who loves you. You're never to apologize for.
So I appreciate
feeling
sometimes
and
being
true
a man who
emotions.
cries. It doesn't always go over well with other people, but no, and one of the reasons I appreciate, she's one of my best friends in the whole world, and I love her dearly for it. And it's just very nice to just be able to, again, put the heart on the sleeve, be real, and know that I'm in a safe space to do that.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's just for anyone watching this. Be genuine with how you feel. There's no expectation that you feel a certain way or act or think a certain way to meet an invisible expectation. Like, who gave you this expectation?
But sometimes society puts that on us. And it's, there's that
Be
conditioning, and that's all I can
strong.
say is, be strong with it, yes,
What
be
is
pure.
that? That means show up to life authentically. That's what being
Right.
strong is. It doesn't mean you have to do something different, act a certain way, think a certain
Be
way.
real, live from the heart, live with love.
Yeah, just get to be. Just be. You don't need to be something. You just need to be. Just show up and be. Like, it's so liberating. Look at this. This is me. There's no expectation for what happens when Radix shows up. But he
Right.
gets to be. He's doing it
Positively
perfectly.
adorable.
This is the expectation right here. It's the be.
Yeah.
And this is the do. He's doing right now. This is what,
Simple as
because
that.
it's perfect. There's no expectation.
All right, well.
This is us. So this is him and his emotion right now. And, this is a great example because it's authentic.
It is.
And this is what's accepted. And anything that's not authentic is, maybe there's a little room for change, a little room for improvement or something. But
It's all part of the experience, right? Part of our growth.
it is. And,
And we all search for that love and that space and that place of safekeeping and safe being. But just, yeah, that's all I can say. I mean, I don't know. We don't want to maybe, repeat, but I don't know what to say other than just live in that authentic heart space. There's one thing I've learned, especially coming out of a near-death experience. I mean, I've lived a life that, where I've been angry, I've been depressed, I've been so many other really hard emotions and things that I did when I was young, I carried with me through my whole life. And I didn't know how to let things go. I didn't know how to forgive. And it wasn't until I went through this that I learned not only just to forgive others, but even to forgive myself.
Right.
And it gave me an opportunity to start anew, reinvent myself, reinvent my life, and just in a very simple context. Just when I get up every day, I just choose love, and I just think about what does that mean for my day? How do I apply that to my day?
that's it. And, that's what we're talking about also with grief, with the emotions around grief, with the anger, with the things that feel unfinished, with transition, with death, and with, the days that we just want to quit. There was just something's just too much, and missing the people who've made that choice for various reasons, and the struggles that we have in chronic pain or whatever, where we can say there are days I just want to quit, but then I don't. It's because we're choosing love.
Truth, absolutely.
And when people stop choosing love, then they start choosing self-harm.
Yeah, the alternatives usually aren't good.
No, and when the self-harm happens, then others hurt. And that's the big piece, because the number one rule is do no harm.
That includes to yourself.
Exactly. Just do no harm to the planet and to all beings. You're included in a being. And
Because the people that love you are going to hurt when you hurt. That's just the way
that's
that works.
right. So how much more hurt is going to be inflicted?
And if we want to shift this world, I mean, it's going to be
It's
through
the
love.
higher consciousness, and it's love. Love is the highest consciousness.
And it's one thing we all share, one thing we all have in common, is that we can all relate to and experience love in one form or another. We all have that in our lives.
How do you describe anger? A lot of times with grief, there's anger. A lot of times there's anger and love doesn't show up the way that it sometimes does. So what is that for you in your experience or in what you've witnessed in life?
Well, in my case, and I think we talked about this earlier, I don't feel like anger and that sort of thing is necessarily the absence of love as much as it's love, being twisted, kind of going through these really horrible sort of personal filters, these sort of conscious layers that are reflections of my pain, my inner pain. And because I don't know how to process it, I don't understand it. And sometimes, we can feel betrayed by love, and even when somebody else passes, like we've been talking about, even when my mom died, I couldn't help but feel a sense of, not towards my mom, but just the fact that I lost my mom the way I did, when I did. There was just that feeling of betrayal, maybe from life, maybe from God, where I just couldn't process it and understanding it in a way that, so I had very unhealthy ways that I was venting it out. It happened through drug addiction, it happened through fighting, it happened through a lot of things that, thankfully are long ways behind me now, but where I did things that I was very ashamed of for a very long time, because that anger twisted me. I allowed, because of the love that it hurt so bad, like I said, I didn't know what to do with it. I had no idea. I had no outlets, and the outlet became anger.
What is the antidote for the anger? Is you have different ways now of coping with that.
Well, as we were talking earlier, and there's a lot of ways, I think, but for me, the best thing that I've discovered, and one of the reasons I'm a guy that cries, is because rather than losing my temper, I've learned to cry. So I found that to be a much healthier outlet for when those emotions build up. And back in the day, my go-to was go lose my temper, go break a bunch of things, or go out and get myself into a fight, or even back, I've been a martial artist my whole life, or go down to the gym and just go beat up on the bag for a while. I've found, and I still have my martial arts outlet. I don't fight anymore, obviously, but at the same time, crying has become a very, very healthy way to release those really hard feelings. And I find that I feel purged, I feel relieved, and kind of renewed as a result of a good cry. Now you got to be careful too, like anything. You don't want to end up wallowing in tears, and so that all you do is cry. When it's time to let something go, that's another thing, is learning how to when it's time, I've been through it, I've processed through it, now we can let it go. That's also what it's taught me how to do, is be able to let it go so that I can be the healthy, happy person that just wants to reach out and hug everybody and spread love.
Right. Do you think that martial arts and Qigong and Tai Chi help you center and help redirect some of the anger, or is it?
Absolutely, because you're moving energy. Whenever you, and it doesn't just those, any of those kinds of practices, and it depends on the intention behind it and how a person wants to use it. A lot of people, especially when I was young, I didn't really understand it quite that way, because I just loved fighting so much. But at the same time, yes, it's. I'm in the art called Kuntao Silat. My teacher's an 86-year-old, named Bill Detours, and I describe this art as the art of moving energy. And you can move energy in terms of, obviously combat applications, but you can also move energy in terms of how to heal, not just the physical body, but also heal the emotions, heal the mind, the soul. But it's all about moving energy. So when you're doing these Tai Chi kinds of movements, and you're breathing with it, again, you're releasing, you're taking in the positive, you're releasing the negative. It can be more complex than that, but on a very simple basis, it's essentially what's going on. You're bringing in that positive, loving energy, and you're releasing that which does not serve, but that which can harm.
Yeah. Mindful-based practice is just basic breath work, being with the moment. For me,
absolutely, being right there, one in the moment,
that hardest moment,
being that right moment. Perfectly said. I like that.
It is just breathing, being with God in me, being with what is in me, what arises in that moment.
That love we're talking about.
Naming it and accepting it, and just having compassion for whatever that is, and just dropping into that, and just breathing through it and getting through that moment is healing. And I learned to do that. If someone doesn't know this practice, doesn't know how to do it, the way I learned to do that was with Radix. So, and actually it was with my Boston Terrier I had before him with Charlie, but it was, and Seti, her sister too, I learned, I mean, animals are our
Sometimes
teachers.
you just go hug your dog, go hug your
Animals
cat, go
are
hug your
teachers.
horse, you know?
Well, yeah, that. But it was knowing that all sentient beings deserve love. So I could send love to the animals around me. I could send it to the cat. I could send it to the dogs. I could send it to the bird. I could send it to...
And they give it right back freely.
I've had snakes. I've had sharks, whatever. Like, I've had these animals. Send them the love. They, you know, it's amazing. And then it was, I could name eventually myself with them. So it was, you know, it was blessing and loving and giving and naming them, and then naming myself in the same sentence. Then I learned, and it took help of somebody else. I couldn't do it on my own still. Even after weeks of daily practice, up to a couple of hours a day of doing this, I still needed someone else to take out the names of the animals and make it just me. It was the hardest thing, because the empathy and the compassion I have always went to others and didn't go to me. Now it's second nature that, no, I get that too. I can empathize. This isn't selfish. This
And allow
isn't
yourself to
greed.
receive it.
Exactly. And it's, what's interesting is once I started doing that, my body started to physically change. So I've been my worst enemy. The meanest things that have ever been said to me have been said by me. And the harsh judgments, the things that...
I think we can all be our own worst enemies sometime.
Right, but like things that lead to eating disorders or whatever. Like
Sure.
a lot of that came from up here, and then it came out here, and then it went in here, and then this had a reaction. Right?
It's all
like
connected.
Exactly. Once I let go of the mean things and started to say the kind things, the things I used to pick on that I didn't like started to literally fall off my body and go away. And now I don't see those things. And like if I have a scar somewhere, instead of being conscious about it, I'm like, I survived that.
Sure.
Like that has a story, that has validity, that has...
The only thing I have is a body full of scars.
It's a scar. And,
Yep.
and
They all have a story.
and some of them are the reason I'm alive and still in this realm, and I literally shouldn't be. Just like you really shouldn't be. I really shouldn't be. And we've had that discussion in another video, but here we are, right? And then here we are having these really human experiences around what is eternal.
But being able to share them.
Yeah. Why keep this inside, and why be quiet about what we aren't comfortable talking about? And I feel like it's because of the way our society, Western society, deals with death. If we were in New Guinea, for example, and were responsible for maintaining the mummies of our ancestors, dressing them, combing their hair, grooming them, having annual ceremony to add more smoke and things to the bodies, and adding more herbs to preserve them, and spending time talking with them face to face, wouldn't that be quite different than burning somebody's body or putting them in the ground 6 feet?
That definitely makes for a different perspective. And you know, in Native American practices, you know, something I enjoy is taking part in like what's called sweat lodge in Native American practices. And forgive me if I say this the wrong way, but there's an expression, I think it's Matakiasan, which means all my relations. And when you do a sweat lodge, the idea is to connect with that which is your lineage, your ancestry, all that which is your relations that can go back centuries, millennia, no matter where that may be in the world. And drawing strength from that, drawing wisdom from that, knowledge, insight, love. I mean, that's one of the ultimate connections in this life. And talking about, especially if you've just lost somebody, it all ties that together. It's all
Right.
infused and connected.
And it's different people in different parts of the world have different ways of addressing transition in a
But not in a
life.
taboo kind of a way, in a way to embrace
We
it
make it taboo
and turn
in our
it even
society.
into a celebration. I mean, one of my favorite things when my mom died that we did, that, you know, even though I didn't do so well after the fact, but one of the coolest things is, you know, there's a thing for you that are Irish, you know, what's called the Irish wake. You know, they you know, and when somebody dies in Ireland, oftentimes, you know, the tears are at the funeral. But what happens after the funeral is usually a raging party to celebrate their passing and make sure to send them off in a good, positive fashion, you know. And I know we did that for my mom, and we definitely cried at the funeral, but then, you know, the whole thing afterwards, we just had this big, incredible party, played all my mom's favorite music, we sang songs, we laughed, we cried, told stories. It was fantastic. What an amazing way to honor somebody as they're passing and transitioning. So that's, it's all over the world. But you're right, so many parts of the world, including here, it's so taboo, and people avoid it so much, even want to talk about it, you know, let alone take the moment to embrace it and just even take a time to celebrate it.
And some people grieve and wail, and some people out-wail each other at funerals to show how much they love the person who died.
Especially like in New Orleans. I'm not an expert in those celebrations, but you see the most incredible celebrations. The emotions are just out there for all to see in the whole world, and they don't even care. They just let it all out. It's laughing, crying, and that wailing that you talk about. Music's playing, people are dancing. The whole thing. It's an incredible. I can imagine. I've never been part of it, but I've seen it. But I can imagine how amazing it would be to be a part of something like that.
Be a part of it. My grandmother, growing up, would go to funerals of people she didn't know. So when she was born, her mother died from complications of childbirth.
Oh, jeez.
So she was a day old when her mother passed. So her whole life has been around death.
Of course.
And, you know, in transition into new life. And when she was a little girl, she saw both her mother on one visit and her grandmother on another. But she asked her aunt and uncle who raised her who that person was, and she described them. And they were just in shock. And they said the woman in the rocking chair was your mother. And then the other visit was the woman who came up to the bed and pulled the covers out from when you covered your face. That was your grandmother. Or maybe I had it backwards, but it was, you know, the people who had passed came to see her. And so she's had these experiences, which are like experiences that a lot of us who are neurotypical have. She had them. My father doesn't
people can have those. It's one of those experiences. Anybody can have that experience.
It's true.
Let's be clear. Anyone can have this
anyone
experience.
Can have that.
If you're open to it, it's possible. I would just be clear about that.
I just noticed it's a little more prevalent with a certain population. There's some research that has been done on that. But when I was, I don't know, this was probably 15 years ago, a mother of a client came to me because her son was having those experiences, and I think he was 7 at the time. She said, is this more common for people on the spectrum? And I said, that's a great question. I don't know. But I didn't downplay it. I totally normalized it because that's
we gotta
my experience
let
too.
everybody have the experience and know that it's possible for every single person.
And then later,
it's nothing more natural for us. It's our souls.
Yeah. Later, I learned
the most pure
research.
core part of our being, the soul.
Exactly. So for my grandmother, her whole life was this. So she lived in Louisiana, and there were a lot of funerals, particularly funerals for people of color, where it was, you know, the parade and the horns and the umbrellas and the things that you see. But this is very traditional, and it's coming down from, you know, a different heritage, a different lineage, a different practice, a different, you know, combination of Catholicism with other religions. It's a big mix, and it's a big celebration. It became very specific to this region of the country, right? But her whole life being brought into this world where the introduction was death. I mean, she'd always been fascinated with death and funerals. So as a little girl, she and her siblings, who were her cousins, would go to these funerals of the African American population, and they were having these funerals. And this is right around, see, she was born in what, 1905, I think, so around 1910. she was going to these funerals and kind of like sneaking under the fence and going in and watching, and everybody was singing Bye Bye Blackbird. That was at every single one of the funerals. That was the song that was sung. Like in a lot of the funerals we attend, it's maybe Amazing Grace or something. It was Bye Bye Blackbird. And so she knew all the words, and they'd be there watching what would happen and seeing and watching the reactions. And I think for her it was so normalized because that was her introduction to life.
Sure.
And it was always with her. And she always identified as an orphan, even though she had 3 families fighting over adopting her. Because at the time, a single dad wasn't a thing. And her father loved her very much, but he had to work. He couldn't take care of a newborn daughter. But the aunt had several other children. It was 8 or 10 children. I think it was 10. And her youngest was 6 months old when my grandmother was born. So she breastfed them both and took care of him. And she's like, I have 10, what's one more? Like, that's another. So yeah, so, but until she passed when she was 93, but until the day she died, she was an orphan. That the grief and the loss always stayed with her, even though she had a father who loved her, who was in her life. That mother not being there.
It's tough. It can be really tough, especially if it's happened.
The birth
that early
mother
in
not
life.
being there made her an orphan in her mind, and it didn't matter who showed up and how much love. It was just so it's ingrained. It's really deeply ingrained, and as I said, different cultures have different ways of dealing with that. I don't like the way the U.S. deals with death and what we do with bodies and all the stuff around it, right? I feel like,
but at the same time,
can we allow space for this to be individualized?
Truth, but at the same time,
help with
I
healing.
don't want to make light of how anybody wants to deal with it. I mean, if that's where you're at, then that may not be maybe where you and I are necessarily at with it. But at the same time, I just want to say, I mean, however you choose to do this, just do it with love. That's all.
Exactly. That's why I'm asking for space for it to be individualized, so that it can be done with love, so people don't have the unresolved feelings and the awkwardness and the what does it take to get to the point of not just the acceptance but the true fullness of healing, rather than this is so awful, this is so much, I think I'm just going to leave too, I'm going to abandon the act of love because the pain is so much, right?
Sure.
And that was my only point to that, because it makes sense. There's compassion, and at the same time, why not choose love? Which love is God, right? Like, because you can't separate those. And then the suffering happens when there's the abandonment or separation or dishonoring of love.
Right.
Because that's where the real grief is. It's not the separation of a soul from a physical body. But, would we all be celebrating and cheering? Like, it's been documented in history 3 times that a body and soul ascended to heaven together. And people witnessed it, and people were down below. They were dancing and cheering. And if we all left that way, would everybody be dancing and cheering rather than having this state of suffering of seeing the separation, which seems really unnatural?
Well, I think a lot of people talk about, the source of suffering is oftentimes in the perception of separation. I think if you're grounded in a material world and you view it through a sense of separation, then you can feel very lonely and very disconnected, and obviously they can make for a kind of pain that can be very much unbearable. But seeing the world through the eyes of energy, kind of the way Tesla puts it, it's to understand the secrets of the universe. Probably paraphrasing this. To understand the secrets of the universe in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And when you look at it like that, you see the connection of it all.
Right.
Even in that passing.
And there is interconnectedness. And I think if we forget the interconnectedness, then there could be a space for the anger and the grief and the unresolved things, the unfinished business, the whatever.
Well, some people at a point in life maybe they just don't understand yet. Sometimes people just need time, and sometimes we just need to give them that time. not something we can force on anybody. You know,
Right.
you've got to find your way. That's the big point of one of the things I write about and I like to talk about, and I think we've talked about is, I mean, we all have to find our way, and it's going to be different for everybody. And like I say, I don't want to be cliche, and I want to keep repeating myself, but it does. Just do your best, and just make sure you do it in love, not just love of yourself, but the love of those around you.
That's
You know,
right.
love of the world, love of society. But again, start with that love of self, and no matter what you're going through, just I mean, and I'm speaking from experience because I know I've been super abusive, just self-abusive, I should say, not abusive to others, but self-abusive. I mean, if there's anybody who's been my own worst enemy, it's definitely been me. And I know, like I said, when my mom died, I didn't know how to process it. So it all came out in anger. It came out in me ending up on the streets and doing a lot of cocaine and speed and meth and other things that just, well, basically destroyed my entire life inside of a year as a result of it. Because I didn't know how to process it. I didn't have the right outlets for it. And so it all got turned and twisted into this most horrible anger. I was already kind of angry to start with, and that just brought it all out, just like tenfold. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons I just want to be careful, because I know we all have to go through and process differently. And if you're watching this, I don't want to make light of wherever you're at. And if you are in an angry space, you know, just please think about that. Just take some time and try to find a way, if you can, to try to be gentle with yourself and find a way through that doesn't hopefully involve, any form of self-abuse, because it can come out. Sometimes you end up hurting other people in the process without even necessarily even meaning to. And I know for me, before my near-death experience, it just was so much for me to live with. I carried so much guilt, so much shame for so many years. Even though I was well past it, even decades past it, I just couldn't let it go. Even in my more conscious mind, I just couldn't let it go. So, I mean, just again, if you're there and you're in that space of where you're really struggling with that, and you're watching this, then just think about that and just try to find your way to just find a space of gentleness, a space of even softness, if I may dare say, because not everything's about being hard, because the world wants you to conditions us to try to be hard about everything. But again, just take that loving approach, find a way to start processing and healing. And there are people out there, even if it's not somebody that you know personally, but there's people out there you can potentially talk to about it, so you have a space to help you process this thing, so maybe you don't have to do the kind of damage to yourself that I did to myself, when I lost my mother.
Reach out to us. That's why we're here, and that's why we make these videos.
Right.
Because you're not alone. We want you to know
and that's an important key. You're not alone. I know it feels like that, because I know I have felt so alone so many times in my life. And if I'd have known then what I know now, I mean, there are people out there that really are going to care, and there are people that are out there that really can at least offer some insight. I mean, you still got to figure it out and find your own way. It's on you. But you got to take the steps to find some of those people that maybe can help guide you, give you some insights, give you that food for thought that helps connect you with some of the answers that you seek, so you can find perhaps a more loving way through it, a more healing, healthy way through it, so you don't have to, again, bring harm to yourself or potentially to others.
Right. And MMA helped you a lot when you were younger. And
well,
martial arts.
Martial arts, and I was in Muay Thai. I didn't do MMA.
I thought you did. Did you train MMA?
I did train in MMA sometimes,
Okay.
but I've always been. Karate was my first start. Kempo style, Parker style Kempo karate. Muay Thai was also many years of that, and then I got into this art called Kung Tao Silat. But along the way, I've trained in every discipline you can probably train in one form or another. I've done jiu-jitsu, I've done judo at one time or another. I don't hold belts in these arts or anything, but I've also trained in a lot of MMA gyms. Now, back when I got into the ring, it was always Muay Thai. I fought Muay Thai back when I was in the ring, but I've never actually specifically fought an MMA fight. Outside of that, because I fought on the streets, I've been in a lot of no-rules fights, and I also spent a lot of years in nightclub and concert and event security, so I dealt with a lot of violent situations in those environments as well. So that's where my fighting experience comes from. So I mean, I'm not an MMA fighter. I love MMA. I follow MMA for sure. I follow boxing, all the combat sports. And I've even been in a boxing ring a couple of times. But the case in point, though, is I just had the chance to get exposed to a lot of these different things and train with a lot of martial artists that are in these disciplines. So I've learned a lot from everybody. But the most important person that I've learned from, like I said, is the man we call Uncle. His name is Willem de Tours, and I will preach him all day long, because he's one of the most amazing and incredible human beings I've ever met. And not to mention, this man at 86, almost 87 years old, could just do things I've never seen another human being do. Just incredible and amazing. It's an honor to learn from this man, especially now, because I'm getting older, my body's broken, and now I'm basically training for health and all the movement and all this energy work that we do. I mean, I find that, despite my body full of arthritis and my pain, I can still move. Like I say, if you see me at a club out dancing somewhere, and I love to go dancing at the club, you'd have no idea that I'm in the kind of pain that I experience on those days.
Right.
And that's because it's just moving, exercising, keeping that energy flowing, not just physically, but internally. You know, yin and yang, internal and external.
You and I both, those days when we can move and we can dance, we are on the dance floor.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We
Heck
have
yeah.
to get out there. Yes. Dancing and then going to art events, art and culture events, especially art shows and things. But yeah, dancing. Gotta dance.
Anything that moves that energy.
Live music.
Anything that touches the soul, you
Yeah.
know.
Live music, dancing.
Makes you live. Makes you want to
Live
live,
music.
no matter what you're going through.
Dance nights. Yeah.
I mean, I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, whatever you've got going on, movement, any kind of movement. I say this all the time. You know, I have a student that it has, you know, it has brittle bone syndrome. You'd meet this girl and have no idea she's been a martial artist for the last, I think, 7 or so years. And she's an amazing martial artist. This goes to show you that anybody can apply themselves and anybody can benefit from this. And she'll tell you, she's the first to tell you that the martial arts has been incredibly helpful to her. And it's been a key part of what's keeping her healthy and strong. And it's interesting because one of the best stories that I've heard from one of my students, not a combat story, not a fight story, but literally because she walks on crutches and on both sides. She's very small, but she talked about being at I think it was in a convention or a seminar type of an event. It was kind of crowded. And she was trying to walk around a table that had a big blanket over the top of the table or covering over the table. And she got her crutch stuck in the covering. And she said years ago she would have fallen. And as a girl takes a fall, she's going to break bones, and that's a trip to the hospital for her. And however many weeks it's going to take for her to heal from those broken bones. But because she'd been training, because she had balance and strength, she literally just walked through it, was able to pull her crutch free of the blanket, just keep on walking and go about her day like nothing happened. And I mean, it may seem kind of funny, but that's one of my favorite stories in the world because
huge.
That is. That's you know, that's got to just finish her day, have a nice time with her friends, and not have to hardly think anything of it. It saved her. There was no trips to the hospital, no broken bones, just getting to enjoy the rest of her day. Just because, you know, just because she trained and works hard, and it's made her stronger, and it's given her more balance and more confidence, I think, overall too. And knowing that even somebody like her has options. I can't imagine anybody confronting somebody like her. That would just be, I can't even imagine the kind of person that would. But if, God forbid, it happened, she has options. She's not helpless, which is beautiful. Right. Anybody can benefit, but it's all, you know, with the intent and how you choose to approach it.
And that's with any decision,
with any discipline,
any
whether it's dance, any form
anything.
of exercise, swimming. Water is amazing. Exercising, swimming, and water is absolutely incredible as well. I mean, we could go on. There's so many things. And whatever you're doing out there, one of my favorite quotes is, if whatever you're doing is helping you walk the path of love, just keep doing it.
That's right. Always walk the path of love. So
Whatever supports that, whatever helps you in that space, and whatever relieves you of that pain and that hardship so you can maintain being in that positive, loving space, you know, whatever is healthy for you, just keep doing it.
thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say, is this a good spot? All right. No, thank you so much. Seriously, if you spent this time with us, we talked about a lot of things here. Hope you got something out of this. Hopefully something in there is helping you with your experience somewhere. And that's the whole goal here. Just this something we said helps you with whatever you're going through, then goal accomplished, and nothing but love to you.
Thank you. Reach out to us. See you soon.